Hello and welcome to the France24 interview. Our guest today is the Foreign Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Adel Al-Jubeir. Mr. Minister, thank you very much for being on the show.
A pleasure to be here.
I want to begin with the situation in Syria. Foreign ministers have been negotiating for weeks, meeting in a number of places, trying to stop the fighting and eventually find a solution to this never-ending crisis. However, there's no real ceasefire, and there's even less of a political solution. The outlook is definitely grim.
I would take issue with the word never-ending crisis. The Syrian crisis will end. It will end without Bashar al-Assad. It will end with a country that is unified. It will end with a country that has civil society government, and it will end with a country that has equality. There is no doubt about it in my mind. It could take 6 months, it could take 3 months, it could take 3 years. But the situation in Syria will come to an end and there will be no Bashar al-Assad in it. The choice that we've always said is twofold. One option is to end it through a political process based on the Geneva I Declaration and Security Council Resolution 2254, which is what everybody prefers and what we have been trying to achieve in the discussions of the Vienna group and the like-minded group that met in Paris. Or it will be end through a military conflict. The Syrian people will not allow a man who's responsible for the murder of 400,000 people, the displacement of 12 million people, and the destruction of a country to remain in power.
So you're pursuing the first path, but it seems it is not working. Those talks are going on and on. The fighting continues. People are dying. You've said that there were some war crimes recently committed by the regime in the town of Aleppo. So this means the second solution is the only one left.
The regime has committed war crimes from day one. Their torture and murder of children, their indiscriminate bombardment of civilians, their use of chemical weapons, all of these are outrageous crimes, crimes against humanity and crimes against international law. There should be no doubt about it. More reason why Bashar al-Assad has to go, and more reason why Bashar al-Assad will go. No doubt about it. Now,
how?
We are pursuing a political process. There is a consensus that has emerged in the world about what the political process should look like. The Syrian opposition is unified and is moving along this process. They have offered serious proposals for the transition period on how to transition power from Bashar al-Assad to a governing council that will then set the stage for new elections and a new government. But the obstinacy and the foot-dragging and the refusal has been on the part of the Bashar al-Assad regime. And so we will continue to support the political process as if there is no war, and we will continue to support the opposition as if there is no political process. Like I said in the beginning, the choice is Bashar al-Assad's. He will be removed, either through a political process or through a military force.
The talks between the opposition and the regime mediated by the UN Special Envoy Staffan de Mistura, do you think they will resume in Geneva? Or do you think that given the situation, especially the latest fighting, it's virtually impossible that they will resume and be a potential solution?
This is something that Mr. de Mistura has been working very diligently on. This is something that all the countries are encouraging. At the end of the day, the cessation of hostilities has led to a fairly noticeable reduction in hostilities, not in the Halab area because of the actions of the regime and its allies, but there has been an improvement in the reduction of violence, and there has been an improvement in the distribution of humanitarian assistance. That we have to acknowledge. It's not perfect. It's not where we want it to be. And all the violations have been on the part of the regime side, for which the regime has to be held accountable. There have been reports of aggression by the al-Nusra and Daesh, but al-Nusra and Daesh are classified as terrorist organizations who are not part of the ceasefire.
Should this support be amplified? More military help, more financial help to maybe get even, if it's possible, with the regime, its allies, Iran, Russia, other militias?
Our view has always been we should provide more military support to the
why isn't this happening?
Opposition. Because there is an agreement among the countries that support the opposition militarily that we will do everything by consensus and that we will not do things alone. Our argument has been from the very beginning that we should provide the opposition with more weapons and more lethal weapons, including surface-to-air missiles, including more sophisticated anti-tank weapons, so that we can change the balance of power on the ground.
Washington doesn't agree. Is this changing, maybe?
We hope so. We will continue to advocate for it. I think if you notice that the types of weapons that have been delivered to the opposition today are more lethal than what was delivered a year ago, and what was delivered a year ago is more lethal than what was delivered 2 years ago. So it's trending in the right direction. We will continue to push very hard in order to provide them with the weapons they need to change the balance of power on the ground.
Are the Russians ready to abandon Bashar al-Assad eventually?
I can't speak to this because I don't know. I know that they have said, and they've said it publicly, that they're not wedded to Bashar al-Assad.
But can they divorce?
I hope so. I hope so, but I can't assess it. I can tell you that what they've said publicly is they're not wedded to Bashar al-Assad, that Bashar al-Assad's fate should be determined by the Syrian people. Our argument is 4 million refugees and 12 million displaced people is a lot of Syrians who don't want this man.
Last question, is there still talk of sending troops on the ground in Syria?
Yes. We have said that this would not be unilateral on the part of Saudi Arabia. We are part of the US-led coalition against Daesh in Syria. We participate with our Air Force. We have said that if the United States sends ground troops into Syria to fight Daesh, that Saudi Arabia would be prepared to send special forces alongside those troops. But we will not be sending troops unilaterally.
Is the US moving towards such a decision?
I believe they have said that they are. They have made the decision and that they are, but I'm not aware or in terms of the actual planning of it, so I can't comment on it.
But this could happen?
I believe it could happen, yes.
I want to move to Yemen, another regional crisis. The war has been raging for over a year. There are also peace talks. I don't know if they're really talks, because right now it's up in the air. There have been talks held in Kuwait for the past few weeks. Do you see any hope that they will eventually succeed?
Yes, we have to have hope. If we don't have hope, we can't operate. We have a war in Yemen that has lasted a year.
Much more than you thought.
The legitimate government, nobody can predict wars. Did anyone?
Saudi officials predicted a quick win.
Well, did anyone predict that World War II would last 6 years, or that the Iraq War would last 10 years? Nobody did. The wars are uncertain. Allies change, alliances change, realities change. The objective of the war is being achieved. We were able to protect the legitimate government of Yemen. We're able to now liberate almost 80% of the country. We're able to allow humanitarian assistance to go into Yemen. We stopped Iran from dominating the country through a militia, the Houthi militias, which are allied with Iran and Hezbollah. So yes, in that sense, the objectives have been achieved. Now we want Yemen to move towards peace and reconstruction. We have worked with our allies in the GCC to put together a long-term development package for Yemen. We have reached out and talked to the Houthis directly about the importance of having peace in Yemen and having good neighborly relations with them. And we have encouraged the Yemeni government to go into the peace talks.
But it's not working for now. The Yemeni foreign minister said, we've seen no progress. We're talking, but they're not offering anything. Are you more optimistic
I think,
on Yemen than you are in Syria, to put it this way?
I'm optimistic on both. Syria will end, as I said, and it will end without Bashar al-Assad. And Yemen, the fact that they're sitting at the table and the fact that both sides have accepted UN Resolution 2216, the fact that the Houthi Saleh side, which had previously rejected the GCC initiative and the outcomes of the national dialogue and 2216, have now accepted it as the basis of discussion, is very optimistic. The fact that we have seen a reduction in the violence in Yemen is also optimistic. The fact that they have agreed to hand over their heavy and medium weapons is also very optimistic. The issues, I believe, or disagreements that they have pertain to the sequencing and the timing of the steps that need to be taken. And in all negotiations, we have to be prepared for some difficult moments. We have to be prepared for some setbacks. We have to be prepared. But in the overall scheme of things, I believe that what is happening in Kuwait is very significant, and I believe that it has moved the situation in Yemen closer to a resolution. And I hope and we will be working very diligently with all parties on this, that we can continue to support the UN Special Envoy Ismail Wald Sheikh Ahmed in his attempts to bridge the gaps between the two sides.
This brings the issue of the regional situation, the relationship with Iran, diplomatic relations were severed several months ago.
They were cut.
They were cut. Is there any hope of mending fences with Iran, or do you still consider Iran's behavior in the region to be a major problem for Saudi Arabia and other countries?
I think nothing has changed in terms of Iran's behavior. Yes, we don't see a change. We see Iran in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Yemen, in Saudi Arabia. We see Iranian officials advocating warfare. We see Iranian officials inciting. We see Iran harboring terrorists.
You sound a little bit like an Israeli politician sometimes when you talk about Iran. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is there are reports of meetings between former Saudi officials, Israeli officials, because there seems to be a de facto alliance between Saudi Arabia and Israel because they both have their problems with Iran.
We don't have relations with Israel.
I know that.
And as far as
you have the same strategic ally, though.
And as far as our views towards Iran, these are shared by every country in the region. Kuwait, Bahrain, the UAE. Iran is a threat to everyone. And the Iranians, if they want to be good neighbors, and I hope they do, we respect Iran as a neighbor, a country with a great civilization. It's been around for hundreds of years. It will be around for hundreds of years. All you have to do is look at the map. They're on one side of the Gulf, we're on the other. We want to have good ties with them. Conflict doesn't serve them, and it doesn't serve us. But all the anger and all the conflict and all the aggression is one way, from Iran towards us. So they have to change if they want to be a good neighbor to us.
Are you having any exchanges with Israel on Iran?
No.
Very good. Thank you very much on those words. Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir from Saudi Arabia for being our guest today on the interview on France 24.